where their writing's at. They'll usually say like home use, where all of ours will say professional use, which is very, very different. So if you see here, you'll actually see professional clipper because everything we use is professional grade. It's not consumer grade motors and components, which is a big difference that a lot of people don't really realize. So today we're gonna go over, let's see, let me share screen. Sorry about that. Let me just get on here real quick and get this in for you guys. And of course, it doesn't want to let me do it, right? Uh, can you guys see that? Anybody?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause it's kicks me out of the screen. So if you guys have any questions on that or any of that, just let me know. So what we're going to go over today is basically general clipper maintenance and troubleshooting. Um, right off the bat, some of your common problems you'll find with your clippers is going to be a misaligned or overlighting blade. So if you see from these pictures, like on the bottom left, that's unaligned. You guys have probably ran into that a few times, especially if somebody's dropped their clipper or messed with it themselves. Through the top row, you'll see overlapping blades. That gold blade, which is the cutting blade, the blade that actually moves on the clipper, is overlapping the bottom blade, which is the guide blade for it. If you run into a machine that's like that, it is going to cut because the moving blade is what's going to touch the skin first. Um, these are a little bit exaggerated in the pictures, but you guys have probably experienced stuff like this before in your class with students. I know most of my students when I was teaching, first thing we all did is took our machines home and played with them and then couldn't figure out how to put them back. So these are common issues that you're gonna run into. A lot of you guys will look at these and get um, intimidated because most of you guys are cosmetology teachers, correct? And in cosmetology school, you don't really get taught much about barber tools. It's kind of one of the things they threw in there for like a week or a week and a half in your module, and that was kind of it. So it's a little intimidating, but don't need to be scared of it. It's actually very simple. These issues are pretty common, and they're just alignment issues, and it takes you less than a minute to fix. And really, all you need to do is loosen the two screws that are on the back of the blade right here. You will not remove them the whole way. You only need to turn them, an eighth to a quarter of turn at most. And then you'll take your two fingers, like you see in the picture on the left, and realign the blades the right way. You'll make sure the teeth on the guide blade and the cutting blade are parallel with each other and do not overlap. And then tighten down your screws. That's all you need to do to readjust the blade on the clipper. It's very, very simple. Um, The screwdriver that'll be required for that will be a Phillips screwdriver and it'll be a PH2 bit. So you've probably seen different bits on screwdrivers. They come in quite a few different sizes. For everything on our tools, you would require at the smallest would be a P0, a P1, and a P2. Those come in most of your screwdriver kits. If you buy anything with a multi-bit screwdriver, they usually have all three of those on them. They're pretty common. They're used in most machines, clippers, tools throughout the industry. Um, it's a very, very simple one right there. I know a lot of people don't know about that. Does anybody have any questions on adjusting those blades? Do that. Anybody? No? Okay. We'll go to the next slide. So this is going to take you to the trimmer blades. Now, again, you'll see in the left picture, the cutting blade is actually overlapping the bottom blade. This is from the back side of the trimmer. So instead of looking at the trimmer like this, you're looking at it from the back. And you see those blades hanging over. That again is an alignment issue. Again, very easy to fix. If you look on the left, you'll see that the teeth are actually just extending over the tip of that blade. That'll cause cuts. Um, you probably heard the term zero gapped, and a lot of people like to do that to both their clipper and trimmers. That refers to that gap between the two cutting blades. Most barbers like to have that gap very minimal. Um, some people obviously overdo it and tend to get red lines and cuts on their clients. And again, those are easy fixes. I showed you how to do it with the clipper already on the other side. And I'm going to show you how to do it here on the trimmer. The trimmer is a little bit more intricate because it is a smaller blade. It's a little bit harder to see the teeth. Um, on the first picture on the top left, you'll look and you'll see that I take a screwdriver and actually pull the spring out of the two grooves that are on the blade. If you look on the bottom, is an up close picture of the two grooves that the springs are supposed to sit in, that is already moved out. So you'll take that screwdriver and actually push the springs to each side. In the third picture on top, you'll take a PH0 bit, which is the smaller Phillips one, and those two screws you're going to loosen that the screwdriver is actually pointing to. And you do not need to loosen them more than an eighth to a quarter of a turn. You are not going to remove them all the way, just slightly loosen them enough to move your blade. And then you're going to adjust the blade to be just like we did with the clipper. Down here on the bottom, you'll see where the cutting blade does not pass the bottom blade. And that's it. The ideal gap for both of those distances is the thickness of a sheet of paper. On clippers, between a business card or a piece of paper, the thickness of that is ideally what you want your gap to be at. On your trimmers, most people prefer a piece of paper because it is a little bit closer. However, with students, I would highly suggest against that. What we ship our blades shipped at out of our kit is probably the ideal distance for students because students tend to push hard or be a little bit more aggressive with their trimmers than they need to be. And as a safety, we ship them at a little bit of a more gap to avoid those issues from happening. Sorry, guys, it's extremely cold over here. um, to eliminate those issues from happening. Um, Anybody have any other questions about the trimmer blades? Okay, so we'll go to cleaning now. So cleaning on the clippers, I suggest cleaning them every month. If you're busy, if you're cutting a decent amount of heads every day, I would do a full cleaning every month. In theory, every time the time changes, which is about every 6 months, every time the time changes is usually a good time to do it. But if you're working in this in a shop or you're actively cutting, multiple heads a day, I suggest doing it every month just as a precaution to keep your machines good. We spend good money on our tools and we want them to last. So starting on the clipper, the full breakdown would be you're actually going to remove the blade. So you'll see on the picture on the right that the blade is completely removed from the machine. You're going to brush that area where you see the little cam above that little gap that's right there. You're gonna brush all the hair out of there. If you have compressed air, you can go ahead and use compressed air to remove that. Between the two blades, which is in the center picture, you're gonna make sure that's clean completely with disinfectant. You're gonna spray it down with some type of cool care, Barbercide, and wipe it clean. And on the left picture, this is actually the drive that pushes the cutting blade. It's connected to the gold blade. There's a groove there. If you see that up close, let's see, you can see that up close. There's actually a groove right there, and you're going to use that to, so right here, can you guys see that little red dot? That groove needs to line up with this bar that's on the clipper when you put the clipper back together. Um, that bar would require grease. Or if you don't have grease, a drop of oil would be efficient to put on that bar when you put it back together. And then you're going to oil in between your blade when you put it back together. And I'll show you the oil points on that right now. So again, here's a picture cleaning the machine. You're going to remove the body on the cover on the machine. You're going to brush around the motor casing and the circuit board. And you're going to brush in between the gap that's right there above the motor. It's in that second picture on the top. Once you removed all the debris that's out of there, you're going to reassemble your clipper, put your blade back on, following the steps that we just used in the adjustments. And then you're going to oil the points that are pointed out on the bottom pictures. So you're going to drop one drop of oil on the left side, one drop of oil in the center, one drop of oil on the right side. And on the back of the blade on each side, you're going to use one drop of oil. Then what I would do after that is I would open the lever on the clipper and turn the machine on. and move the lever back and forth a few times to allow that oil to seat itself in between the blade and the places it needs to do. And then take a paper towel, wipe off the excess oil, and you're good to go. That's all the oiling the blade needs. I suggest oiling your blades before every haircut. Every clipper manufacturer in the world require usually tells you to oil your blades before every haircut. Um, it's a practice that I always did. Depending on the barber, some barbers don't like to oil their trimmers as much because they feel that it leaves them a sharper or crisper cut, which is technically false. It actually causes issues and causes hair to drag and not be cut. But it's to each their own in that preference. The same thing applies to your trimmer. You'll remove the trimmer from your machine, and all you need to do for that is, if you can still see my video picture here, you just remove these two blades and the blade comes right off. You don't have to worry about the adjustment on the trimmer after you've pulled the blade off because the blade adjustment is separate from the trimmer itself. Whereas the clipper, if you remove the blade on the clipper, you will have to readjust the blade once you reassemble it because they are separate pieces. On the trimmer, all you need to do is come in here and brush out this whole blade area that's in these three pictures right here. You will brush those all out. Inside the body of the clipper, if you can get in, once it's removed, you'll brush the inside out to remove all the debris that's there, and you will put it right back on your trimmer. So you'll just put it back in, put the two screws back in. You don't have to worry about any adjustment because it'll hold whatever adjustments on the blade when you take the trimmer blade off. Again, in this picture, you'll see the 3 points that I showed you for the lubrication points. One drop on the left side, one drop in the center, one drop on the right side. Turn the machine on, and anytime you oil machines, you're always going to want to hold your blade either sideways, so the oil drips down the blade, or upside down like this, so the oil will drip out of the machine, not into the machine. If you oil your machines, your machine pointed up, it adds the oil into the machine and can cause issues down the road with any machine on the market. However, our clippers that come in our kits do have a seal on the inside that's supposed to prevent that from happening. So always oil your machines with the blades facing down. Same thing when you spray disinfectant on your machines. You always want to spray the disinfectant with your blades facing down to minimize the chance of any kind of liquids getting into your clippers. And then wipe off your excess, with the exception for the disinfectant. You got to leave that on for the amount of time that's on the machine. If it's 8 minutes, you have to leave it on for the 8 minutes. This is basically a quick picture of the tools that are required to service a machine. We do include a screwdriver in the kit. That screwdriver is a P1 kit. That's okay for the trimmer and works for most of the trimmer stuff. I would suggest each school pick up their own set of screwdrivers that has a P0, P1, and P2 in it. This kit I have in the center right here, that has every single bit you'll need to service any clipper in the market and most of their other tools that are in the industry. Costs $12 from Walmart. If you wanted to get one of those, I think every school should have one because blade adjustment's probably an issue you've had in your schools already. So I would say just going, 10, $12. It's not that much. Or teachers that are doing the barber, section. I know we hesitate to touch their tools, but it's something that needs to be done from time to time. I would highly suggest picking up that kit. The screwdriver that's on the end is just a little more high-end version. I like nice tools, so it's what I tend to use or carry with me for most of my stuff. And that just has the extra bits in the handle. There's different versions of those. Walmart has one for like $12 or $10, or Harbor Freight has one for like $6 that'll work. But those are the only tools you'll pretty much need for everything that you'll ever have to do with barber tools in the industry. And that leaves it pretty much for you right there. That's all. That's it, really. That's all you guys gonna need to deal with. Any questions on any of that stuff we talked over, or anything you guys want to address? Anybody? Let's see.
So here at T-Small Evansville, we have not been getting the trimmers shipped at the gap for the students. Like they've been coming shipped like zero gapped. They're cutting people. When is that shipment starting to where we get the new ones?
None of them should be cutting people.
Okay.
Most of the
Well, they
time, if
do every time out of the box. Out of the box.
Out of the box?
Yes, straight out of the box. They haven't been touched, nothing.
Yeah, that should not be happening at all. When was the last time you got kits that did that?
So January,
That's
February.
the that's the newest set. Those are the ones that just shipped.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So in January, that was supposed to change from zero gap to more of a student gap for us, and it didn't happen in January when she taught that class.
Yeah, so those actually changed end of December, beginning of January. Um, I'm gonna probably guess that the students are actually using the wrong blade angle. It may be the adjustment, and it may be because the adjustment is a little close. I will go through that and address that after this meeting for sure. But if they're using a blade angle and they're using the trimmer like this, you are gonna cut somebody with any trimmer you use because the moving blade is touching the skin first. You want the guide blade, the stopped blade, to touch the skin first. Always. You always want that to touch the skin first. If you hold it too flat and push too hard, that moving blade will cut you. And the easiest way to test your blades is right here on the inside of your wrist because your skin is soft. If you take that machine
That's
and you run
fine.
it like this, you will not feel it. If you go like this, you will feel that blade bite every single time. Blade angle is very, very important, even with clippers, especially in the bottom of the nape area. A lot of students like to do this with their machine right in the back of the neck, and that moving blade is the first thing that touches the skin. You need to push the head forward and come in from the bottom when they do that. Those are the biggest issues I usually see with students when they pick up machines right off the bat. Um, I would probably guess that's uh, a vast majority of the issue. But I will double check all the machines that we have currently in stock right now to make sure that none of them are overlapping.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Jay, I see a question. It says, why are some of my students' clippers getting extremely hot?
So on the older kits, the blades were slightly different. They had our DLC coating all the way through. Um, on all of the machines that have a DLC blade on them, there's a mating session on it. So as the blades rub together, you have to wait for them to kind of seat themselves. During that process, which is usually anywhere from 3 haircuts to 5 haircuts, you will experience a little bit of warmth. They will get warm, but they should not be hot to touch in that process. If the machine is actually getting hot to touch, the blade is hot to touch and bothering customers, I would most likely think that either that machine is for one been running for an excessively long time, which even still shouldn't do that, and two probably needs to be cleaned and oiled. If the blade is not oiled, it will run hotter because there's little reservoirs inside the teeth of the blade. Let's see if I can show you on here. You might not be able to see it in this video, but in the blade teeth right here, you'll actually see little grooves on the black guide blade on the bottom. Those are oil reservoirs. What that does is it lubricates the cutting edge of the blades on every stroke. It keeps a little bit of oil there that which cuts down the friction and keeps the blades cool. If that section does not have blade oil, every blade will get hot in that process. I'm trying. Yeah, I don't have another blade sitting in front of me that's open where you can see it, but I can take this one off for you. So like if you look on this blade and look towards the teeth, see those grooves? Every single tooth has a groove in it, and then under the groove you'll see like the little arches that kind of go up and down under those teeth. Those are all oil reservoirs. That's where the oil sits in between the blade to keep the temperature down and lubrication there so you don't have any issues with heat or losing edge on your machine. So a dry blade will run hot. A dry blade will be aggressive when it touches skin because there's no lubrication to hold it away from anything, and it will cause heat. So those are things I would check on the students. If for one, when the last time they actually cleaned their machine, and two, when the last time they oiled it is. I would always suggest oiling before every haircut. I know a lot of people don't, and in theory, you shouldn't have to oil more than once a day, to be honest with you. It should hold enough oil to get through a whole day of haircutting. But sometimes you may need to apply an extra bit of oil, especially if the machines are dirty. If you've got any kind of debris in between the blades on the machine that's built up in there, if you can't hold it up and look through it like this one is here, if you can't look through it, there's too much hair in that machine and it needs to be cleaned out. Um, Q-tips work very good. Pipe cleaners work very good. I actually probably prefer the pipe cleaner because it has a metal wire in the inside of it to clean out the inside. Or you can actually just take your machine sideways like that and spray your cool care in the gap that's in between them above a trash can. Turn the machine on and spray it in there. That'll loosen it all up and it'll drop right into a trash can. You don't have to worry about cleaning it up yourselves and then just wiping it off after that. Usually those are the components that cause heat in any machine. 9 times out of 10, it's no oil. Second is usually debris, because even with debris in them, they can still run quite a bit of time without having too much heat build up. They will get warm after a long time. If your students had that machine running for an hour straight in the haircut, it's gonna get warm, but it shouldn't be hot to the skin. It shouldn't be anything that's, that you would feel as heat. It would be like just warmth, which is pretty normal on any machine. Do you guys have any other questions regarding the machines or adjustments or any other maintenance that you might need? Anybody? So that would be it for the clipper maintenance and trimmers. I mean, it's pretty simple. Those are with those two things right there is really doing everything you need to do with the clipper. You don't need to disassemble anything else more than that on the machine, other than, like I said, you'll take the 3 screws out of here to pull the cover off to clean out hair from the inside of the machine. That I do every month. The inside of the machine really doesn't need to be cleaned out, but every time changes, every 6 months is fine on that part. I highly suggest brushing this area out though. This I would do every month. I would come in here and brush every single piece of hair I can get out of that, um, out of there at least every month, because hair will build up in there and that will also cause heat, because it's like putting insulation inside something that's running all day long. It's gonna build up heat after a while. But a clean machine runs cool and a clean machine runs quiet. So those are it's very, very simple when it comes to tool maintenance. Um, Other than that, that's kind of where I would be at. If you guys have any other questions about school kits or even barbering in general, I can help you out with those right now.
I really like the way you demonstrated how to hold the clipper at the proper angle so it doesn't bite. I
Yeah.
hadn't seen that up close before, so that was really helpful for teaching the students.
Yeah, that's something that I encountered a long time ago. I just didn't, most of us don't realize it. We think just cut hair, cut hair, and that's fine. But if you really look at the machine and you see that blade, especially when you turn it on, that blade's moving. So I mean, you can feel it on your wrist. A good way is to pick up a kit and test it on your wrist. If you hold it like this, you'll feel it bite. Once you change the angle, it's not there anymore. So that's one. Traditionally, you didn't really have that issue that much because people weren't doing a lot of lineups, lining. A lot of teachers taught to like pull away when they were doing lining. So the guide blade or the blade that doesn't move was the first thing that touched. But now you get a lot of lineups. People want a little bit more crisper lines, so you get a lot of kids that come out and they start doing this, and that little slight movement of angle makes a big difference. Ideally, you want to come in like this and pull down. That would make the biggest differences in it. And even here, if you push in hard, like on my wrist, if I have the angle right, I can push hard and I'm not gonna have to worry about any cut. If I come like this and push hard, like right there, it's cutting me, you'll get your cuts right there. And then you'll see later, you'll have a whole bunch of little bite marks in there from it. A majority of the time when you're cutting with the trimmer, it's too much pressure and bad angle. Um, let your machines wait do all of the work for you. Even your clippers, when you're cutting hair, you don't need to push. If you're pushing in, you're causing issues because the blade is adjusted to have a certain cut length. And when you push in, that cut length changes. It's going to cut more hair, it's going to dig in more. And now the only way to get any line that you put out from doing that is to use something smaller or something that's shorter or use more pressure. And it opens up a whole bunch of issues. So I suggest letting the weight from any clipper do the work. You'll set it flat against the head and run it on their head to take care of what you're doing. Um, that's my biggest tip I can tell you when it comes to students. So this is my personal kit that I carry with me, which is the student kits that you guys get. I actually use this and travel with this quite often because I really like this clipper. But this blade is flat right here for a reason because that is what's supposed to sit against the head. That flatness is supposed to sit against your head. If you tilt it like this, you've changed the angle of the cut and you've changed the length of the hair you're cutting. So where this would be a zero, this is going to be closer to your double zero. That cutting blade's coming closer to the skin. Now, when you press in, it's below that, and that's where you're causing cuts. If you do this with your clipper yourselves against your wrist, you'll feel here is smooth, nothing, no biting, no pinching, no pointing. When you get here, you start to feel the tips of the blade start digging in the skin. When you get here and drag it, you feel the cutting blade start cutting your hand. So when you see people go like this with their clippers, that's wrong. The flat part of that blade is supposed to sit flat against the body, the head. And you want to ideally hold that section flat through your whole haircut. Even when you start putting guards on your machines, the same distance. Everybody talks about scooping a machine and scooping out and doing these kind of motions. Look, if you hold this blade flat against the head and you're not applying pressure, every single guard you put on your machine, if you hold that flat when you're working on the head, they will blend into each other. They are designed to match each other's distance with this blade being flat. Once you change that distance, you change the geometry of the cut and you change the length of the cut. Now your guards are not going to match each other. So your half is not going to meet your one. Your one is not going to meet your 1.5 because now you've did a little bit less than the one. And now you got to go back to the other guard to try to make up the difference and correct that. So always use the blades flat against the head. Now, when they get more advanced, after you've mastered holding that blade flat against the head, when you get more advanced, you can start pulling out from the head as you get to the top. So when you've got to a spot where your machine is actually fully opened at the biggest movement in the machine, and you're getting ready to go from, like, say, no guard to the half guard, as you come up to the spot where you want to start transitioning, you can pull out. And that pulling out will actually basically texturizes the ends of the hair because it has the same effect as using a texture shear on the very tips of hair because now you're pulling out and you're only hitting the very tips. So it actually texturizes that end. So when you come back in with that half and you have it on the guard and you come in here, it's going to blend into that hair a lot easier. A lot of people will tell you to do these type of motions, push in and pull out. You're changing the cut length on every single stroke. And if you don't replicate that stroke in every single stroke you do on the head, your haircut's going to be off. It may look good when you leave, but in 3 days, you'll see the zigzags and the pushes in the head because it's not even. So always just use the weight. Use the weight of your trimmers, your clippers, use the weight of your trimmers. If people want to use their trimmer to remove bulk, which I don't suggest, make sure they do it this way. Make sure they don't come around the head like this and scrape the hair down to start. Anytime you go like this, it's going to be more of an aggressive cut. It's going to go in sharper. If you put a line around the head, because a lot of people teach them to start your guideline with the trimmer like this around the head. If you do that, that line's not coming out. The only way to get it out was with something lower. And anything lower than this is going to be like a razor or a shaver. And if you're not very proficient with that, it's a whole can of worms that you don't want to deal with, especially as a teacher on the floor, like, students are cutting, live people's hair. You don't want to deal with that. So I always suggest if they're going to do that first line, either to do it with their machine closed and put that first line in, or if they insist on using the trimmer, use the trimmer going up. That way you're not pushing in a line that you can't get out. And our kits, when they ship, our trimmer matches the clipper closed. So the clipper closed with the lever all the way up matches the trimmer. So those can erase each other's line. If you adjust this trimmer too much, then it doesn't match this. Now you're gonna have to come back with your trimmer, and now you're gonna have to do different tricks and techniques to get that line out. So on our kits, the way our kits ship, our trimmer matches our clipper. That's something that's important when it comes to clippers. A lot of people don't realize that when you adjust your clipper, because everybody wants to do zero gap, because that's the cool thing everybody talks about online. Once you start changing that angle, you got to make sure your trimmer matches it. So once you adjust your clipper, you got to adjust it to match your trimmer. So ideally, don't touch them. Leave them how they come out of the box, and you should have no issues with it. Granted, your students are still going to go grab the tool and change them anyways. That's what we do. We learn by failures and making mistakes, and you guys will have to deal with it. So those are things that you can remember to remind your students about. Holding the guards and the blades on the flat sections against the head like they're supposed to be, and pressure. Your clipper, you don't have to push. You let the clipper do the work. Let the weight for it. Your trimmers, let the weight from the trimmer do the work. The the exception with the trimmer is if you get certain hair types, like hair that's a little bit more coarse, or actually hair that tends to be like more kinky. Um, you will have to use a little bit of pressure on. So those type of hairs usually brush the edge of the line out first and then come in, and you can add a little bit of pressure. As long as your blade's pointing down, you could add a little bit more pressure and pull on that. You won't have to add a lot of pressure. I mean, honestly, most of the time you can do it like this. I usually hold a trimmer with 3 fingers and let that trimmer do all the work for me. Um, as you get more advanced, you can switch from this angle to more of a this angle because you'll know your pressure better, and you can use that as a more advanced technique to get crisper lines once you understand your pressure, because you can use a trimmer like this with very light pressure. It won't cut. The moving blade will touch the skin, but it won't cut. But if you add pressure to it, it's a disaster. You're gonna see lines everywhere, and red, painful lines that aren't pretty. So I always suggest just using the weight from your machines. That'll eliminate most of the issues you'll have. That blade angle is common. Usually my first day, when it comes to using trimmers in classes, that's the first thing I tell everybody about it. I remind them about the pressure. I make them take their machines and try them on their wrist right away so they understand what it feels like. I show them the proper angle, and then I show them the wrong angle. And I have them turn the machines on when they do it so they can feel what it feels like. And they'll always have that reminder, because once they cut their wrist later on in the day, they're going to sting and they're going to feel it. And they're going to be like, damn, I don't want to do that to my clients. So a lot of us have done that. I'm guilty of it. When I started, I haircuts look great when they left. 2 days later, I get a picture and they got lines on the back of their neck, and I'm like, what did I do? What happened? They didn't leave like that, But those little, surface cuts, you won't even notice them at first. Some of them will be white. Some of them will just look like a light redness to the whole neck area. That's caused from the moving blade actually touching the skin. So if you look at the skin when your students are cutting hair, or especially with the trimmer, if you look at the skin closely, you'll see the micro perforations in the skin, and you'll know that the moving blade is the one that did it, because you'll see like little punctures, little, like, it looks like somebody took a rope and kind of rubbed it against the skin. You'll see the friction marks. That's typical of the moving blade touching anything. And you'll notice, especially in the nape, in the very bottom of the neck, the very very bottom of the nape. You'll notice that with the clippers, because that area is different on everybody's neck. Like, I don't have a neck, so if I don't lean my head forward, you most people end up coming in like this and trying to kind of clean up my neck. That can be an issue. So, like I said, you can do that, but the pressure means everything. If you lightly press on that, you can catch it, and then you can come back in and put that flat part of the blade. I would highly suggest just taking that trimmer because it's a smaller blade and coming off the skin and, pulling out around that neckline and then coming back in with the clipper to do it. Those will eliminate most of the issues that you have when it comes to cuts and abrasions from clippers. That's it. And again, it's one of those things that people don't learn overnight. You have to make a mistake to learn from a mistake, and we all do it, and every student is going to do it. That testing on the inside of your wrist is probably the biggest teaching tool I can probably give you guys when it comes to holding blade angle, because they feel it. Each individual person will feel it themselves, and then they'll know, oh, I don't want to do that again. That hurts. Um, and a good one after that, when you do that in the class, have everybody take sanitizer and clean the area because it will sting. It's a mental reminder. Mentally, we all remember stuff from trauma or cuts or torture or some kind of pain. Those things stick out in your mind like crazy. So the sanitizer, which is a good thing anyways, because it makes sure they don't get any infections or where they're at. So that's how you can justify it. But it's one thing right there. They'll feel it and they'll remember that. And they'll know that they don't want to do that to nobody. And later on in the day, you can walk through and just kind of look at everybody's wrist, and you'll see the red marks and red lines, and be like, "Oh, you felt that, didn't you? What'd you think about that?" "Yeah, I don't want to do that." "Okay, look, work on your angle." And when they get their first clients in their chair, when they're actually working on a live person, that's the thing you remind them. Remember the trimmer angle. Remember the angle of the blade. Remember the angle of the blade, because that's when it's going to matter the most, especially on the first couple of haircuts they do. Um, Only other suggestions, if they don't think the line is coming out clean enough for them, I would only suggest, I don't know if you guys are in a state that allows you to use a fade brush. Most states don't anymore. They only allow you to use a comb, but you would just take that comb and have them comb that line area out, the hair around that edge, have them brush it out with their comb that they have, and then come back and hit it again. Brush it the opposite direction and come back and hit it again. Because hair moves, hair grows in different angles. We all know that. Especially in men's cuts, you'll see it. We got hair that go in like weird angles all the way around our heads, and that's just individual for each person. It's always different. So those are things to be aware of. So if you brush at the different angles, that'll also help tremendously when it comes to edging. Anything else you guys have questions on? Anybody? Cool. So I think the next class you guys have, you're going to get a haircut demo. Our director of education that we brought on is will probably be teaching that class. I may not be on that class. I hope to be doing some actual cutting education and in-person training on blade adjustments soon at some of the events for the teachers that are coming around, because I'm not a big fan of Zoom for teaching classes. I think in person is always better. If any of you have had the privilege of sitting in any, or the disprivilege of sitting in any of my barber instruction classes, um, I don't like people to sit. I encourage everyone to get up and come and look right on, come see what I'm doing, because that's what's ideal to me. You come up and you look, you can actually see it. You can ask your questions right then and there. I can show you right then and there. I prefer that because everybody has their own thing that they don't get. We all don't learn the same, and we all don't see things the same. So sometimes when you come up and you show somebody exactly what the issue is that they're dealing with or they're trying to correct, it's like an aha moment and we figure it out. So that's what I would definitely, I look forward to doing some more with you guys. In the class that I believe is going to be next month for the hair cutting, if I can, I'll jump in on it and we'll go a little bit more in depth in that. But anything else you guys want to learn about or you want to know about, go ahead and feel free to ask me or let April or anybody know. I'm more than willing to jump on when I have time to jump on and do another class or more in depth on any of the situations that you wanted to, or pieces of this. This is a very broad demonstration, but I am definitely open to doing anything you guys need on that. If you want me to go more in depth on blade adjustment, I can do that with you. If you want full disassembly of everything and me to show you how to take it apart completely and put it all back together, I can definitely do that too. Those will be a little bit more of a longer class, but I'm open to doing that too, you guys, if you guys want that.
I'd love to see a full disassembly.
Yeah, I can definitely set that if we want to do that. So April probably won't work, but maybe in June, um maybe after or maybe before actually Willie's haircutting class. 'Cause I think his class is June 24th. Maybe before that I can do a full disassembly, especially with the clipper. I mean, again, the clipper is very very simple, but it is a lot of little things that if you don't see it, you won't understand it. So I have no problem doing that for you guys. I can definitely do a full breakdown on the clipper, and then I would probably do a second one for the trimmer just because that can get out for over an hour and a half or so. And you know, a long presentation, we only catch little key points of it. We never retain everything. So I'd rather hit like key points on each one that gives more memory retention on what you're trying to teach and implement. So definitely, we can put that together. If April wants to get together on that, we can talk about it. We can do a full disassembly of the clipper on one. Um, I'll see if I can actually do a full disassembly on the trimmer. If I can put them together and I think it'll work, I'll definitely do it. If not, we can hit them one by one on each one and do it that way.
That'd be great. And then maybe whoever does the demo for the live haircut, could you have them just recap briefly on angle, holding the clipper and trimmer, and then also just a quick after the haircut, how to oil them and properly for the students?
Yeah, I don't know exactly who Willie's gonna have teach that class.
I
I
believe the haircutting class is actually a long-haired class, not a
okay.
clipper class.
Okay.
But hey, we have time to change it up. So, it's not until June. So we can discuss it once we get
Yeah,
off this
yeah.
call.
Let's discuss it and see. I know, because I think you guys requested a styling class, and that's
Yep.
kind of one of Willie's things. He's a licensed cosmetologist, so that's one of his favorite things to do. I was more of a in most of my career as a cosmetologist was color correction and updos. I did a lot of updos. That was my thing in color correction because that's where all the money was at. So, but we can get together and do something like that during the cutting class. I'll find out who he's gonna have teach the class with you guys, and then I'll make sure that those points do get readdressed in that for sure. Is there
Thank
anything else
you.
anybody wants to talk about? Or any more questions? Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you
I
guys,
think
you
uh I think it was great information. We appreciate it, Jay.
Yeah,
no problem, no problem. Yeah,
thanks, Jen.
there's lots of tips and tricks when it comes to barbering that most people don't learn. You learn firsthand because let's face it, when we all go to school, we really don't learn how to cut hair very good. We don't learn a lot of things. We learn client protection and sanitation. That's mostly what most schools focus on nowadays. And you learn everything in the real world. You learn in the salon quickly how to work in the salon. And the same thing with a barbershop. You learn how to work in a barbershop very quickly, very different. You learn how to cut hair very different than you're taught in school. And during my time in the industry, there's a lot of things that I learned that I wish somebody had showed me in school. So I'm more than happy to share all of those little tips to everybody because if it can help somebody, I would love to see it help somebody. And that should be it for the meeting for me.
Thank you so much. And then just the schools know as soon as the recording does pop up on my end, I'll be sure to share it with the schools that logged in. So please make sure if you haven't done so yet that you typed in the chat box what campus you're from, because that's the only thing that saves when I log out. So that's the only way I'll know who was on. So please make sure that you put that in the chat box and I'll get the recording sent out. Thank you.
Perfect. And then if you I can send you a copy of that PowerPoint if you wanted it. It was just really for picture reference, but I can send you a copy of that if you wanted also.
Yeah, that would be great because then I can send that with the recording, and if they want to share that with their students, they can and have it for reference. That would be great.
Yeah, it's really like I said, it was really just to show like a visual reference of the things because it's kind of hard to show on the camera. So I just kind of threw the pictures together to do it. But I'll definitely send it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, I'll stay on for just a minute or so just to make sure everybody types in their information. But otherwise, thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank
No
you.
problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks,
No problem.
everyone.